Jealous for me, love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. Oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us so. he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Toledo Church Christmas sermon. I'm so happy to have you here. And before you fast forward to get to your festivities, to hear the meat of the sermon, I have good news for you. This is a brief Christmas sermon. I know you have festivities. We have festivities, and we're all excited to get to them. But I'm also excited just to share one simple thought with you today. And we're going to read two scriptures that kind of pull this thought together. And we're going to focus again on Jesus. The gift of presence has been our theme throughout December. And today the title is All Eyes on Jesus. And so just to kind of summarize what we've talked about so far in December is our first Sunday, we talked about the peace of Jesus. That we can't get anywhere else, anything like that. That kind of peace that Jesus shows us and gives us is a different kind of peace. No matter the circumstances, he's kind of shown us through his life, through his teaching, definitely through the crucifixion, that no matter the circumstances, there's a way to get a peace from God we can't get anywhere else. And we're all kind of part of that. All of us who choose that kind of peace. And we titled it Peace Train. The second Sunday, Rob gave the sermon, did a really great job. Jesus intercedes on our behalf and of our accuser, because Satan is lying to us and accusing us all the time. And Jesus steps in. He shows us in Matthew 4 how to handle that. When we're convinced that we're just terrible moms, we're terrible dads, we're terrible disciples, and Satan is whispering over our shoulder, that Jesus steps in and says, no, she's with me, he's with me. And he shows us how he intercedes on our behalf. And that's just great news, and it's great to remember. The third Sunday, we talked about Oh Holy Night, we titled it. Making room for Jesus that night that he was born, and reading that story, and just remembering that we have to make room for Jesus. It's so easy, especially in the Christmas season, to kind of get busy with our own story, and we try to make room for God, and it can't work like that. We have to remember that this is God's story, and that we are just invited to participate in his story. And it changes our whole mindset when we have that mentality, and it gives us all the room we need for Jesus when we remember that it is God's story. So here we are. It's Christmas. Christmas is finally here. We've been focusing on Jesus' arrival. The ironic thing for me is the closer I get to actually Christmas Day, the harder it is for me, the more difficult it is to see Jesus. So today's message, as we come into Christmas, is all eyes on Jesus. And so we're going to start. There's an image of shepherds that you'll see. And nobody knows what the shepherds look like, but we're going to read a little bit about these shepherds, these wise men, as they were called, these magi, and kind of learn from them. In Matthew 2, verses 1 and 2, it says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, magi, or wise men, from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. Interesting that these guys could see a star and know that that was Jesus, that that was the Messiah. And Luke just called these magi, when in his gospel, he just called them shepherds. Matthew calls them wise men, calls them magi. Some of the shepherds were actually recognized when they studied the stars and become experts at that. The Persian court actually recognized them as magi or wise men because they were so learned of the stars, and they knew every star and had names for them and the whole deal. The only way to get good at that, like that, is to fix your eyes to the sky at night, is to really fix your eyes and study the stars, because they were outside so much. They really knew the star constellations very well, and they became experts. They studied the stars, were familiar with the normal patterns. So when something abnormal happened, they were very aware of it because they knew the way it was supposed to look and the way it normally looked. And when they looked up and saw that star, they knew it. Well, how did they know that? There was a new pattern, a new star appeared, and they knew it was special. It's because they also knew the scriptures. They knew the stars, but they also knew the scriptures. It goes ahead in verse 6, and the shepherds actually recited Micah, and when they were questioned, and it said, the shepherds said, "But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Somehow they knew from this scripture in Micah, they knew when they saw that star, this is the Messiah. This is the one we've been waiting on. And we have to be like these shepherds, these wise men. We have to fix our eyes on Jesus. And when we're prepared, like they were, and we see something from God that God is trying to show us, we recognize it. And I want to imitate these shepherds. I want to fix my eyes on Jesus like these guys fixed their eyes on the stars. And they were ready. When something from God came to them, they were ready. I want to be ready like that. Let's be ready like that. We're going to move forward to the second scripture I want to share. And before that, there's an image of a stadium, a persecution. And just focusing on, we're going to read Hebrews 12, 1 through 3, and just focusing on the Christians back then in the stadium when they were persecuted. Hebrews 12, 1 through 3 says, "Therefore, since we were surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses." And I think what the writer of Hebrews is trying to say here is just like in a stadium, when you're being persecuted, whether it's lions or whatever you're fighting in the stadium and all the Romans are sitting around watching you, there's a great cloud of witnesses for us too. It's the saints, it's the angels watching us, witnessing what we're going through. And he's trying to encourage the Hebrews as they were being persecuted. And we will never have to go through what these guys went through, these ladies and gentlemen went through before us. But he says, surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So, looking at our Christian journey like a long distance race, and I don't know about you, but I'm not really good at long distance races at all. I really wasn't even that fast as a sprinter, but much better at sprinting than I was at long distance. But he wants the reader, whoever wrote this, wants the reader to really think about this image of witnesses watching this event take place, like a long distance race, and fixing our eyes on Jesus while we do this. And he's letting the Hebrews know, or she, whoever wrote this, he or she, while they're being persecuted, the only way you're going to get through this is fixing your eyes on Jesus and know that you have saints and angels, God watching you through this. But fix your eyes on Jesus. And Jesus shows us that even through his life and his teaching, that this journey we're on is not, we call it a journey of perseverance. We talk about persevering a lot, but it's really a race of faith, I think, more than it is a race of perseverance. It's a race of faith. That's how we persevere, but we have to have that faith in Jesus, keeping our eyes on Jesus, and that's how we're going to get through and persevere. And we have to throw off everything that hinders. And I was really thinking about that. I was like kind of thinking about this race, things that hinder. When you watch a race, you watch these men and women, like in the Olympics and stuff, they don't have a lot of extra clothes on. You don't see racers, you don't see runners, swimmers, you don't see runners in Levi's with bell bottoms and clog shoes, high-heeled shoes. You don't see them wearing sweaters or coats because that would hinder them. They wear the fewest things they can so they can get the best times that they can. And it's kind of like you and me. We have to throw off everything that hinders. And I can't think of anything that hinders Christians more than doubt and fear. And usually doubt and fear happens for me when I take my eyes off of Jesus and I start looking at myself. I start looking at this challenge in front of me and I forget to keep my eyes on Jesus. Doubt and fear creep in. And that's, I think, what he's talking about, or she's talking about in this that hinders us. And it talks about the joy set before him. How could you have joy set? They're talking about Jesus, the joy set before Jesus when he endured the cross. What on earth is so joyful about the cross? Nothing. I don't think they're talking about the cross being joyful. I think they're talking about his eyes were fixed on God. His eyes were fixed on eternity when he was on the cross, and there was a joy inside of him knowing that he was going to reunite with God in heaven, and it made the cross worth it. But he had to think about eternity. And sometimes I think you and we got to think about eternity too. I think that is going to pull us through. We fix our eyes on Jesus, eternity with Jesus. It also talks about the author of faith. I love that it uses that, the wording, author of faith. In other words, Jesus wrote the book on faith. And just remembering that it's his story. He wrote the book. This is not our book. This is not our story. And I'm going to say that over and over. You're probably tired of me saying, remember, this is God's story. This is Jesus' story. But that makes all the difference for me as a Christian. When I think it's my story and I'm trying to squeeze God into my story, things just don't work out that well. My faith gets jeopardized. But when I think about and I remember that this is God's story, this is Jesus' story, and I'm just participating in his story. I'm amazed that he invited me to participate, but I'm going to participate in his story, the author of faith, the perfecter of faith. We don't have to be perfect because Jesus was perfect and we're following him. He's the one that's going to take us to heaven because he is perfect, not because we arrived perfect. And he said, finally, there's some perfect people, these perfect Christians here, they get to come with me. We don't have to be perfect because Jesus is perfect, the perfecter of faith. And the last thing it talks about, grow weary and lose heart. I don't know. I think about this winter season. In a couple of days, we're supposed to have this huge snowstorm here in Toledo. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But I do know that the mornings when I wake up, it's colder, it's damp, it's dark, and it's harder to get out of bed. The winter season, I can anticipate it dragging on. And you know, I think it's easy to grow weary and lose heart, especially when the weather is like this. And I think we have to fix our eyes on Jesus. So I'm going to leave you with that. Jesus wants us to see his life, though, really fix our eyes on him as we watch his life, as we watch what he did, as we watch his heart, as we try to understand and really have the same heart that he did, so that each of us in the Toledo church, as a family and individually, can finish this race of faith here on this amazing, beautiful earth. Jesus shows us so many different ways. Paul talks about a lot of those ways in his writings as well, but the gospel shows us so many ways to run with faith, so to persevere. In 2023, we're going to do some exciting things. Kim and I are looking forward to doing some really great things with you. Some of those things you're going to like better than others. A lot of this is new for Kim and I think a lot of it is new, maybe hopefully for you. But I know that for all of us, it's going to go really well if we keep our eyes on Jesus. Have a great time with your family, your friends. Have a great, merry, Eyes on Jesus Christmas. Thank you, guys. Love you.